Right, welcome to another wonderful time right here on OY Media Scotland. My name remains Samuel Oludare Jirokun. Uh, Nigeria's election, that's the topic for today, and that is Nigeria's 2023 elections. I'm right here on with Alagba Femi Odedeyi from Yoruba Referendum Committee. We'll be looking at the activities leading up to today to these elections and some of the things that have been mentioned on this program. Alagba Femi Odedeyi is from the Yoruba Referendum Committee. And remember, if you want to get in touch with him, you can always reach him on yorubaref at gmail.com. Alagba Femi Odedeyi, we welcome you to the program.
Yeah, good afternoon. And we thank God for seeing us through the week and today for another engagement in the ongoing saga of actually what I would call African liberation, because this thing goes beyond just the question of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Right, you're welcome, sir. The topic for today is Nigeria 2023 elections, and I will take it straight on
Yeah.
from what we've discussed before, because some of the challenges to the 2023 elections before now that we've discussed, one of it was the issue of the security situation in Nigeria, talking about Boko Haram and the other bandits. Groups in the north. Then we have the IPOP stroke unknown government in the southeast that are saying that there's not going to be any elections. And we have a section of IPOP as well telling people that there's not going to be any election in those states in the southeast. And of course, right in the southwest here, we also have the Yoruba Nation now, which we're saying that it's not going to happen. There's not going to be any election in Yoruba land in 2023. But this is where we are right at the moment. From yesterday, there have been elections. People have been going out there to vote. Of course, there have been some couple of disruptions, which obviously we've experienced both in 2019 and 2015. But in terms of whether there was going to be an election or there won't be an election, the election is going on right now. And anytime from now, we're expecting the declaration of who the president is. There are some of the results that are already very clear, and that's in terms of the Senate and the councillors, because in some wards, you have clear results of the party that is winning in that. I think it's just only that of the presidency where they have to collate different vote statistics across wards and across states. Bringing us right there, what are your thoughts from your initial projection that nothing is going to stop the 2023 elections? And we are here now. Do you think that where we are at the moment, we will see the election through? Or are we still waiting for surprises?
Well, it's two ways. It is our hope that the election we will see it through, because I believe we have passed the danger point. And the danger point was in the weeks preceding the election, when they started their cash policy and all the rest of it, and then created an atmosphere of fear among the people. And then, like the APC governor said, that actually the policy was meant to defenestrate the APC leadership from the people so that they will vote against them and all that. And then they had the Council of States meeting, which emphasized, and from other sources, it was clear that the whole, before then, there were also people who are clamoring for cancellation of the election and then replace it with an interim government, and then interim government will now reorganize the election and all that. We'll go into that later. But I believe that it was at the Council of State meeting that the whole idea of the interim government was scuttled. It was defeated because it was tabled at the meeting and it was defeated. And then since then, they had no choice but to continue with the election. Now, with the hiccups and all that, they now postponed the election in some areas till today. But so far, the whole election since yesterday had been okay. Results have been declared. At least results in at least 15 states have been formally declared. And so by Monday, latest by Tuesday, we'll have an idea. I mean, a official announcement of the result. So by and large, that's the first part of the answer. The second part is with the undeclared results with the results yet to be declared. And I think we have 21 states or so. Those who are clamoring for an interim government and all that, if they have their way, they can still manipulate the election to make it inconclusive. Well, if it is inconclusive, there are other two options officially. The first option is, there is an option that is, if the results are inconclusive, then there should be a runoff between the first two candidates. That is, the candidate that scored the highest votes and then has the 25% spread in at least 24 states. So with the way the results are now, if they still want to manipulate it, they can still manipulate it in such a manner that no one will have 24 states. So that will mean there will be a runoff, and then the whole shenanigan will start again. But whether there is a runoff or no runoff, the whole idea of an interim government is dead and buried. So there's no way to scuttle that election. So the only option they have, if they want to rig anyone out, and that one they want to rig out will be the APC candidate, because it's the leading candidate now, is to make it an inconclusive election and then organize a runoff. And even when they organize a runoff, it will be very clear, because it's like the 2023 election is like the what I would call what writers will call the last kick of a dying horse. What do I mean by that? The whole question of Nigeria's federalism is at stake. That is and the only way they can legitimately prolong it is to have a credible election. And so even if they have a runoff and the candidate is between the north and the south, which is most likely, and then the votes will be, so even if at that point they still declare it inconclusive, something has to happen by May 29th. So they will still come back with their interim government and all that. But at that time, as things are going and moving in that direction, the whole essence of the Nigerian Federation will be called into question. So to avoid all these things, I believe that's why, especially the northern APC governors, quickly stepped in to make sure that any crisis that will emanate on the fundamental issue of the Nigerian Federation should not come from the much aligned Fulani hegemony. So that's why they quickly distanced themselves from what was going on with the Buhari administration on the cash policy and all that and all that. So by and large, and looking at it from that perspective, it is very clear that the election has provided a form of legitimacy for the continuation of the Nigerian Federation as it is. It is not a federation, no, but let's just say they call because they call it a federation. Let's assume that it's a federation to have Nigeria to continue the way it is without any fundamental disruption. So that is my understanding of the whole process taking place. And so all those people who are initially talking, no election, they are going to do this, they are going to do that, it's very unfortunate, especially for the Yoruba people, that they got sucked into that kind of what someone called a dead endism, dead, a dead end. We have seen what the Biafra people have done, IPOB and all the rest, and we have been saying it. All the Biafra today, no elections, sit at home and all that, started gradually going down the moment Peter Obi entered the presidential race. And even from the results declared so far, there were elections in all the states with all the hiccups in the eastern region. And
Definitely.
most of them voted for their candidates.
Mm-hmm.
When we started making all this, the Yoruba Nation people, they were in their own cloud. And then I don't know whether they will remain there, but they were in their own cloud. So by and large, it's a I will say that the elections will be concluded, and the clear winner will emerge either in the first ballot or by the second ballot. But the main issue for them is how to sustain the legitimacy of Nigeria as it is, and they cannot afford to let it collapse on their head.
Definitely.
And nobody wants military rule. Nobody, like I said, the council, they have even abandoned the whole project about the uh,
Interim,
government.
interim government.
So interim government and all that. So I think that will be it will by this time next week. Everything, at least as far as the presidential and National Assembly elections are concerned, they will have been sorted
Yeah,
out, and then a clear winner will have emerged. They will start going to court and start all the kinds of things they do, but that will just be part of the normal. Like I
of the
said, you can
process.
talk about that in detail because it is connected. The whole thing about this election is connected to what we are talking about on the Yoruba referendum. That, I mean, don't let me let the cat out of the bag yet. We don't get there, but
Yes, so
yeah,
we'll come around to that. Going back to actually the ruling party,
yes.
and some of the activities that have happened in the past few weeks. Have we ever had a situation where a ruling party going into an election chose to block his own victory at the polls? Has it ever happened in Nigeria?
No, this will be the first of its kind, and the reason is very simple. Like I said, the whole question of the continuity of the Nigerian state is at stake.
Yeah.
Uh, so for the hegemonies, let's say the northern hegemony, under the Fulani and with the Kanuri as their junior partner, want to sustain that hegemony. The only way, and they are in power in the APC. The APC leadership and the governors, they are talking about cabals and all that. They are that's just being diplomatic, because there's no way a cabal will be operating in the presidential house without the president knowing about it. But let's leave that aside. So the way they want to continue that hegemony, and the only way they can continue that hegemony is to make sure that the parties, the only party that has a Fulani as its presidential candidate is the PDP.
Yes.
Okay, so the only way they can sustain that hegemony is to make sure that the other parties, obstacles were placed on the path of the other parties to make sure that they don't win the election. So it's a sort of self-sacrifice, if I can put it that way, for the current hegemony under Buhari, to make sure that it is no longer the party that is relevant, but the nationality. And that's what we have been saying all along, that the whole election is about nationality and not parties. Nationalities can form alliances among themselves and do all kinds of things, and it has been proven by what they did in this election that for them it is better to make sure that the APC loses the election, because they are not in control, they are not the presidential candidates, and therefore, and then there's presidential candidate. You can see, if you look at the structure, the Fulani are not in the number one, number two, probably number three, because when they have the election, they are not going to be the Senate president, they are not likely to be the House Speaker. So they are out of the loop. But it pays them to make sure that, or to try to make sure that, a party with Atiku, who is Fulani, who did not even hide it, he doesn't hide it, that this is, their project. So for them to continue that dominance, they will sacrifice their own parties in favor of the nationality. And, when we are telling the Yoruba nation people and stuff, look, this thing is a nationality question. It's not, even the Christians among us, we keep telling them, this is not a Muslim ticket. It's not a this and that. It's a nationality issue. And it has been proven by what has happened. So you have a ruling party willing to defenestrate its own leadership to make sure that it doesn't win the election, so that another party with its own nationality hegemony will be able to win. And that was what happened. That's why I said initially, fortunately, the APC governors in the north felt alarmed by what is happening, and that it might even lead to their utter destruction. So out of self-preservation, they also took up the fight and say, no, they are not going to allow it, they are not going to accept it, and that, they must follow the laid down rules, and which was good. We appreciate that at least there are some more reasonable people, among them that are doing that. So that's why I said the 2023 election is a watershed in terms of the continuity of the Nigerian state as it presently is. It is supposed to be a federation, and they are in control and all that. They will continue with that. But with the results that are happening and the lead up to that election, it should open our eyes that, yes, like we keep saying, we are happy that our candidate is winning and will win, but the battle has just begun. The battle has just begun, because it cannot be sustained in the manner that it is presently sustained. So I think that is the that is the in a nutshell. That is what is happening.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that, Alagba Femi Odedeyi. In terms of the Peter Obi or the youth movement,
Yeah. There's no
because
youth movement too. It's just a fallacy. But let's go on.
or let's say, I mean, we have this social hype.
Yeah.
We have what we can also, because when we look through it, we have youths also working for the other parties as well. We have youths in PDP, for APC, and the other parties.
Mhm.
But in terms of the looking at the previous elections,
Yeah.
and I know that there's still the collation of results is still ongoing.
Yeah.
Um, Even if Peter Obi does not win the election, what do you think of the performance? What is the
Well,
expected performance to be? Yeah.
there's nothing to think about.
Hmm.
There's nothing special in what he did. And this is why I said so. There's nothing special. And this is why. The thing is, he wrote on the back of his own nationality
Right.
and religion. So, and like we said, that is the way the election panned out. So he didn't do anything special. He would have done something special if he had been in the Labour Party for the past 2, 3, or 4 years, building building it up as a viable force and then contesting on that basis. He didn't do anything special. Even Atiku is better in that regard. Though Atiku was also running around from one party to the other, but at least it is not because he didn't jump into any election 24 hours to the primaries or something like that. So the Labour Party had been in existence and in the doldrums for years. Shegun Mimiko was the first governor to run under the platform of the Labour Party to win the Ondo governorship election during his time. And immediately after he finished his 8 years, he left the Labour Party. And the Labour Party is just a paper party like the rest of them. But immediately Obi came in, Patutomi was supposed to be the candidate that they were projecting. They had these so fanciful ideas about a big tent, consultative this. They created all kinds of things like that. But immediately Obi came in on the eve, when he knew he was not going to win the PDP primaries, he went into Labour Party, and the Labour Party that are looking for a lifeline embraced him. Immediately they embraced him, his nationality embraced him. So, and there's nothing special about that. So that's why I said, and then on the, of course, when they talk about youth, everyone assumes that all the Nigerian youths have the same existential condition. It is not true. What the future and the present holds for a Yoruba youth is different from what it holds for an Igbo youth or a Fulani youth. But we just make a general categorization and then he played on that. He
Right.
played on that, and then on the usually the Igbos always claim that they are marginalized when they are not in power. They are marginalized and this and this and that and all the kind of propaganda that they are saying. So those are the things that built him up. And all those things, there's nothing special in it. Now,
Right.
compare him. I have mentioned that you could compare him with what's his name? Tinumbu. When they started with the AD and they ran into a crisis. They formed the ACN, and when the ACN they formed the APC. You can see the consistency, and you can see the efforts that he made when especially in the West, when the PDP was on the rampage and all that. All those stories exist. So you can see even like I said, Atiku himself, he left the AP. He was in the APC, I think, 2015 or 2019 or something like that. But he left and went into PDP and started with them and was building up his forces within the PDP until their primaries. So these are even if you look at some, what I would call is, not because I disrespect them, but they are minor parties. Showore, for example, I think, what's the name of his party? Action Alliance or something like that.
Actually, yeah.
Or something like that. Okay. You can also see
Yes.
you can see his consistency, despite the fact knowing that he's not going to make any dent on the electoral front. At least he stayed with his party and made the necessary noises that he should be making. And others like that, SDP, I think I forgot his Adebayo or something like that. So you can see that these are parties that were in existence, that in and out of electoral season, and they were making their waves, they were talking, whatever it is they are doing it. And they know the obstacles they will face during election times, and they went and faced it. But here is someone who, well, I mean, he left ABGA when he became governor, and then went into PDP, and then, left PDP. So when you look at all those things, there's nothing to recommend that he did anything special. He didn't do anything special. Uh, Maybe it would have qualified for something special if we had two Igbo candidates jostling for Labour Party nomination during their primaries, but there was none like that. So he rode on the wave of sentiment, he rode on the wave of emotions, and these are not part of what I would consider to be something significant. Hello?
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Thank you for that. I think we've got some trying to track the second persons. We have Adonye Joseph Adewumi. Thank you very much for joining us. I think there's still another user. I'm just trying to track the comment of that person. Once it comes on, we'll get it right on here.
Thank you.
We're still on Nigeria's 2023 elections. You've just mentioned about the issue of nationality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually the context of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Why we have those we could consider as federalists, if we can put it as that, those are people chanting one Nigeria, that we don't need to give in to tribal sentiments, that we should just look for the best person for the job. But we've had different examples which you've laid before us of many countries that are multi-ethnic communities as well, including Britain, which happens to be the colonial master, ex-colonial master of Nigeria, where they were able to resolve the complexity of the four nations that are in the United Kingdom, which is the English, the Scottish, the Irish, and then the Welsh.
The Welsh, yeah.
And we have quite a number of people, a good number of people in Nigeria that are well exposed. They are well traveled, they are well read. And this especially in southern Nigeria. Why is it difficult for the people to accept the identities of nationalities that we have, bearing in mind that we've had a regional style government in the past, knowing clearly that geographically, Nigeria is divided by ethnic boundaries. We've tried it in the 1960s, which seems to be the only time that we can all refer to as the time when Nigeria worked. And in the southwestern part of the country, we call it the golden era.
Mhm.
Between then and now, why is it difficult for our young people today to understand the difference between multi-ethnic communities as a nation and the chant of this one Nigeria? Let's just keep on moving on in unity. Where lies the problem?
Well, the problem is in conceptualization. That's the problem. Um, in the run up to the independence, there was still a conflict of what
Right.
type of Nigeria should be. You know, the famous expression, Awolowo's famous expression, which was extracted from his book, when he said Nigeria is a mere geographical expression. You know, it's not a nation, but a mere geographical expression, which is a geo-territorial definition of Nigeria. And it is correct. So why I said it is a problem of conceptualization is during those periods, the three major nationalities in the West, the East, and the North, the NPC, NCNC, and the Action Group, were in competition
Right.
and in contest against each other. The competition was based on their vision of Nigeria. While the Awolowo people were saying recognize the nations and all, the North was also saying yes, we recognize these things and we are ready for a federal system if they are in control.
Right.
Now, the West is saying, look, let's unite and work out a federal arrangement that will be beneficial to everyone. So the North gave a condition that unless it is in control, the East completely disregarded the differences and said, yeah, Nigeria is one. Actually, that is where, even the whole concept of one Nigeria, how many Nigerias can we have? We can have only one Nigeria now. But
Yeah.
when they start talking about one Nigeria, then they make it appear as if you are saying there can be other Nigerias. No, Nigeria is one. You can't have two Nigerias unless maybe you divide it into northern Nigeria, southern Nigeria, like in Korea and all the rest of it. So, but the question is, what kind of one are you talking about? Is it a uniformity? Is it homogenizing everything into one? Or just recognizing the geopolitical territorial entity as one with a multinational administration? So these are the factors that were rubbished by NCSC at that time, Azikiwe and all that, saying they want to balkanize Nigeria and all that and all that. So now when you look at it from that perspective, which is the historical perspective, you will now see, and from what has happened in Nigeria, the question to dominate and control Nigeria has always oscillated between the East and the North.
Mm.
The North wanted to control Nigeria. The East also wanted to control Nigeria. It is only the Yoruba that are saying, look, we can't, because let us create regions for everybody and all that. And these things are in historical records. It's not made up. That
Mm.
these things were tabled at the then Federal House of Representatives to create more regions for everybody. So the problem with Nigeria now is that conflict between the North and the East, largely represented by the NPC and the NCNC. So it was that conflict that led to the coup in 1966, the Civil War, and what is going on today. So the whole question of Nigeria is anchored on that conflict between the North and the East for the control of Nigeria. And unfortunately for us, it is the Yoruba people that are bearing the brunt of it. And
Mm.
it is in Yoruba land that we have people talking about uh, no competence, corruption, and all kinds of stuff like that. Because come to think of it, there is no nationality that doesn't have competent people.
Yes.
So to now say you want competence in Nigeria outside the context of their origin doesn't make any sense. Will the Nigerian drop from the sky?
No.
No. Although there are some communities in Nigeria whose kings drop from the sky, oh, but that's a different thing. So, but they are not going to drop from the sky. So that competent Nigerian must have a cultural root, must have an existential root from somewhere. It's not just a Nigerian by happenstance. It's either Igala or Fulani or Yoruba or anybody. So to even arrive at competence, you have to look at the structural basis for that competence, which is embedded in their existential relations. So when they deny that, and those who are denying it are the ones claiming that they have the competence. So when they say they want competence, they are not saying you should provide a competent person from your side. What they are saying is that we have the competent people to run the show. That's the bottom
Right.
line. So that's the context where all these things take place. And because of that denial, that denialism, like some people will put it, crises are bound to erupt. Okay, so if it is a question of competence and you say you want democracy and all that, why do you need alliances? Why did the NCNC and NPC form an alliance to control the federal government in the First Republic? In the Western region, which we call our golden era, the Action Group won election, conducted itself, provided its policies, and it was judged on that basis.
Yes.
Maybe there were other parties. There were other NCNC, Mabolaje Grand Alliance, Ondo Improvement Union, all kinds of parties. They didn't form any alliance with anybody.
Mhm.
That is the level of competence. So why should you now say you want competence, but you now form alliances to install a leadership? Then you have because everything, all sorts of things go into alliances, all sorts of compromises,
Definitely. Yes.
including sacrificing the competent ones.
Mm.
So to even talk about competence means the recognition of the nationalities, unless you are saying the nationalities have no competent person.
Yes.
Ehen. So these things are connected and they strike at the roots of what Nigeria is. That unfortunately for our youth, one, and this is not an insult to them, it is reality, they lack knowledge.
Mm.
Knowledge about their country. They look at highfalutin ideas, esoteric ideas from somewhere, and then embrace it and run with it
Right.
without even questioning the source of that knowledge. So, and because of that, that's why I said earlier on when we are talking about Obi and use and that in the NSAS protest in Lagos, for example, when they were destroying Yoruba businesses, maybe they were youths, Abi.
Yes.
Mostly,
Yeah. Yes.
which has now been confirmed, mostly Igbo youths. So why did Igbo youths in Lagos destroy Yoruba properties in Lagos, some of which will be owned by Yoruba youths in Lagos? So that is where you start asking these fundamental questions. So when you now say Yes, the older. I mean, I'm not saying the older generation. Everyone is there are different levels of knowledge capacity in each generation. What you do
Yes.
with your generation is to actually situate your generation within the context of its history. You can't run away from it. If you run away from it, there are other youths who are embedded in their own history that will use it to take advantage of you. It is your history is your first line of defense because your history defines who you are. And if you allow someone else to define it for you, then you have surrendered yourself to that person.
Hmm.
So to even to even when it's like Obasanjo when he wrote his letter and started talking about youth and stuff like that, and said that when he was at this age he was that, when he was at this stage he was that. How did he become what he became at that age? Was it by the effort of his age, of his youth, or was he representing a particular interest that placed him there? So
Well,
these are questions people need to ask, and they need to ask themselves, the youth and the older generation and stuff like that. And again, why history becomes important is this, at least for the Yoruba people, and I'm sure there are other nationalities with similar aphorism. You say, ọmọdé gbọ́n àgbà gbọ́n la fi dálé Ifẹ̀, ọwọ́ ọmọdé kò pẹpẹ àgbà ò wọ́ kèrègbè and stuff like that. So by nature, the Yoruba know that you can't make a Manichaean, a clean demarcation between the youth and the older generation. It will be disastrous. They know it. It's embedded in their existential practice. So when you say you are a Yoruba youth and you now start behaving as if you are separate from that existential reality, you will just be led astray by whatever that comes your way. It's as simple as that.
hmm.
And we have seen it happen several times. That's why this election also brought out this hope that uh, you know when in Lagos, for example, let's take Lagos. From my reading, this is my personal reading of the election. I don't think Obi wants to win the presidency.
Right.
Obi wants to make sure that Lagos is
Hmm.
under either Labour Party or Igbo control. Now, if a Yoruba youth looks at his existential paradigm, you look at what has happened in the past, what is happening now, and that will allow you to make an informed decision. But no, when you say, youth, we need to this and this and this and this and this and that. When it was the East that cut off Lagos Island from the Western region to benefit the North in 1959, 1951.
Hmm.
Yes, it is there. When they wanted to merge Lagos colony with Western region, the NCNC by Azikiwe colluded with the NPC to block it, saying that Lagos is no man's land. That alone is a historical way to tell the Yoruba youth, no, they are not going to allow that. But when you
Yeah.
forget that, that's why I say when you forget your history is your first line of defense. When you forget that, you embrace the narrative that is being taken to you. That yeah, we are all Lagosians, we are this, we are youth, we want a change, we want this, we want that. At the end of the day, those who are controlling the narrative will dominate the area and then you become a victim. So the essence of nationality is not about enmity. It's about recognition of the right of everybody to live peacefully together. Like you said in the UK, maybe they have four major nations, and they are the ones that came to colonize Nigeria. So if they are not running away from their national question, why are we running away from it? which again shows the level of our understanding of decolonization and all the ideas and the narratives that we project. We don't need a soothsayer to tell you that Britain record, even on the just on the basis of football alone, or soccer, each one has its own representation to the World Cup now. We all know that.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, not to talk about the political separation and all the rest and all the rest. So the first thing that should come to your mind is, if Britain can do that and they colonized us, why are we fighting each other to say that we are not this and that? And then when you as a Yoruba person make such a proposal, they will now label you a tribalist. But when they are making their own proposal,
Yeah.
they call themselves nationalists. And because you want to avoid being called a tribalist, by the way, there's nothing called tribalism, but that's a different story entirely. Then you now allow them, you acquiesce, yeah, we're all Nigerians, we're all Nigerians. Yeah, we're all Nigerians, but as a geopolitical territory, which can be mediated by citizenship and all the rest. That doesn't stop you from being your nationality.
Definitely.
So that's the.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we looking at the lead up to the election itself. I mean, all through the campaign, the social media hype, the propagandas and co. If you have to advise the Nigerian youth generally now, what would be your advice to them?
It's very simple. One, study the political trajectory. Don't make yourself a human being or an individual outside your reality. What this election has shown, and we have been saying it all along, you have three major contenders, and they represent each nationality. Some didn't propel it, some article openly said it, and stuff like that. But that's the reality. But why is it a reality? It is a reality because it is a reflection of another reality, which is that Nigeria is a country of many nations. If Nigeria is a country of many nations, it is incumbent on the nations in Nigeria to have their own representation in government. And I will prove that with this. Since at least 1999, what they call monetization of election has been on the increase. So now they now say, okay, because they don't want the politicians to do this and that with cash, they will withdraw the cash from circulation and replace it and redesign it and swap it and all kinds of stuff. And we know the effects. Now imagine for once that, okay, they did this in 2023. Now in 2027, if the system remains the same way, are we going to carry out another cashless policy so that they will not have cash to buy votes? That is, are they going to redesign the money again in 4 years' time? Okay, 4 years' time may be too short because they say that ordinarily they redesign notes and stuff in 8 years. Okay, so in 8 years' time, are they going to repeat the same thing? That is number one. Number two, even the whole question of campaigning all over the country and the nomination forms and all that, we can see the geometric increase in the cost of doing these things. And this is where the nationality question comes in. And that is what we are saying, that a proper federation is a multinational entity. There's no reason for, let's say we want to have a presidential election in Nigeria, right? There's no reason for a Yoruba candidate to go to Sokoto to campaign.
Right.
All he needs to do, he or she needs to do, is to campaign in Yoruba land. And to further minimize the cost, we can even say that even in Yoruba land, you only need to campaign in your locality to be elected to the Yoruba parliament, that is, the regional parliament. And from that parliament, you can be elected to a federal presidential council.
Right.
The federal presidential council, they can then rotate it among themselves. Who will be the president and all that and all that. They can work that out. So that process already demonetized the election because all you need to do is to win the election in your local area to your local parliament. And in your local, now, if you have money, you can bribe everybody in your regional parliament to be made, but still, it won't be as much as it is now. So that is what we are saying, that when we look at the nationalities and nationalities as the basis for the federalism that was, in the first republic, it was somehow like that. They started it out. Western region was largely under the action group, Eastern region largely under the NCNC, and Northern region, MPC and Middle Belt and all that. So if that is the case, you don't need, if you want to do a cashless policy or cash swap, it will be easier done, whether it is during election time or no election time, because nobody will care. Because the money you are going to spend, you have already spent it when you are in parliament.
That's it.
So that is the kind of thing we expect people to start agitating for, to start demanding for. That the whole question, that's why, when I was talking about the youth and I said they see an esoteric idea somewhere and then they just, Shebi Obasanjo was a youth as it were. He said he was 37 or so when he was the military head of state. Shebi he was the one that brought the American system to Nigeria, the presidential system. Okay, as a youth, he brought the American system, but he didn't understand the American system when he brought it. Why? Because the American system was territorial federalism. Because when the colonies came, they decimated the Indians, the original inhabitants, they turned the place into their colonies. So it was those colonies that formed what we now know as the United States. So it was their territory that they conquered that began the first 13 colonies when they had the Articles of Confederation, and then they turned it into the federal system they had because they had already destroyed the indigenous people. This was what Obasanjo brought as a youth to Nigeria, and that is what is causing the problem we have today. So, of what value is a youth that has no idea of not only his or her history, or even the history of the ideas that he is projecting? So these are the things our youth should look at, that they brought the entire system without even knowing or even interrogating how it arrived, and then imposed it on the rest by the only thing they had was so it's the same thing today. It's the same thing today. So when they, and like I said, the last kicks of a dying horse for the Nigerian state as it is. So when they now say, yeah, we want to demonetize economy, the election, we want to make sure the elections are not corrupt and blah. Yes, fine. But how do you do it? You have to look at the structure that made it possible and then change that structure. And the structure is, there's no reason for any Fulani of Kanuri or Igala or Ijo that wants to be at the federal presidential council to be campaigning all over the country.
Yeah.
No. You campaign in your locality, get elected to your parliament, and your parliament can select you, or they can elect you, or you can buy them. That's their own business. Then you go there. So that already reduces monetization in politics. So these are things And these are, the parliamentary system and all that. These are the things that were practiced in the First Republic now. I doubt how many of our youths know some of these things because they won't even want to go and examine it because they are angry at their elders.
All right.
Yeah. So these are the, I don't know whether I answered the question. So sorry, I get carried away.
I mean that's fine because the thing was that you will advise them to look into their history and
Yeah,
their identities within the country,
yeah,
and of course relate that to whatever projection they are bringing from whichever place.
yeah,
Moving on, we've seen um, in terms of labor, because I want us to talk about the Labour Party.
yeah,
And you did mention about Mimiko
yeah,
then,
yeah,
who would have, I didn't mean that he stayed back to build that party. Probably would have been what they take as the third force.
yeah.
I think Oshiomhole too was a label at a point. What
He
was a
was a
label?
labor
He
leader.
was a labor leader, but not a
Yeah,
labor.
not in the Labour Party. Mm.
Yeah. Also, we have the SDP, which within, I think, within Southwest was
Yeah,
pushing a bit then. And also we had, I think we still have it, Accord Party,
yeah.
which was then led by Rashid Ladoja,
Yes.
Oyo State and some, before they had a deal with APC under Ajimobi, then they flew back into PDP, and then they are sort of leveled out now. In terms of Labour Party, taking the current contestation aside, do we see a sort of a future in Labour Party itself?
I doubt it. And the reason is this. Labour Party is not actually a party in the real sense of the word. It's just a what business people call special purpose vehicle.
Very cool, right?
Now, when it was formed, yeah, of course, the Nigeria Labour Congress and all that, they got together and some other people and say, yeah, we need a Labour Party and all that and all that, with all kinds of, you know, promise. But it's practice. That's why Mimiko came in. Mimiko was in the PDP and he was a minister under the PDP. And he wanted to contest for the governorship of Ondo State. And he couldn't get his way through the then PDP that was ruling the state
Right.
because the central government was in support of that party, was in control of that party. So he switched to Labour Party and used it as a special purpose vehicle to win the election because he was popular, Iroko, this and that. He was a
Yeah.
popular guy. So he built everything around that and he used it to contest and win the election. So that's why I said it's not a party. So immediately the special purpose vehicle outlived its usefulness. That is, after his 8 years in government, he left the party and I
Hmm.
think he formed another party self. I don't even know. Okay, maybe Zenith Labour Party or something like that.
Right.
Or the party broke into two. Okay. So from there, you will see that both the original brains behind the Labour Party have no clue as to what a party is. Otherwise, they will not have allowed Mimiko to use it as a special purpose vehicle. They could have contested the election, and even if they lose, fine. But they will retain their party paradigm at that
Hmm.
moment. So when a political party becomes anything goes, that okay, you are just shopping for something to that, and that's what Obi did when they are
Hmm.
to shop and they grabbed him and they started running around. Again, political parties were also consequences of our anti-colonial struggles. in those days, when they formed the action group and the NCSC and all that all that, they were also following what was obtaining in Europe at that time. So the political parties were formed with specific ideological political orientation, which they manifested in their electoral manifestos and promises and all the rest of it. So when they formed the Labour Party, one would have expected that the Labour Party would at least reflect, if not the English Labour Party or the European Labour Party, or some kind of Labour Party elsewhere, right?
Yes.
Okay, but they didn't. They simply became a vehicle that anyone could use to win elections. That is number one. Number two, while they cannot take over the government by fiat, they were also operating under the conditions laid down by the central government. But they did not even challenge those conditions as an electoral mandate. All they were looking for was how to situate themselves with it. Now, the other parties, ACN, ACD, we know regular political machines.
Yes.
They want to contest for power. Some of them, because of the anti-Abacha, this and that, we say, oh, this is a Yoruba regional, this is that. We are Feni, we are welfareists. We know that. But when you now talk of Labour Party, that already signifies a class difference, because you are saying that this is a party for the laboring people, for the workers,
For the workers, yes.
for the alliance with the
Artisans.
students and all that and all that. So by that definition, you cannot be practicing electoralism on the basis that others are practicing it. Shebi, that is what has to Kuba Labour Nation. Sorry to use the Yoruba. The Labour Party in UK. Sometimes when and that like they are undoing, especially on the national question, on Scottish or even on some economic questions, then they will be dilly-dallying and they will be tailgating the Conservative Party, and the Conservative Party will just blackmail them and they will lose election. Since 1973, when Kinnock was the candidate at that time, Neil Kinnock, I think he was Welsh. Okay, so you now have this Labour Party that is not that ideologically or philosophically sound. So it is easier for any political adventurer to come in, take it over, and run with it. And when that adventure ends, the party ends.
Yeah.
So it's actually a misnomer to call it a Labour Party. They should go and change their name. So, I
Because
don't.
actually, a proper Labour Party will
Yeah.
have had like manifestos, or they will have targeted the
Yes.
workers, the labor force in the country, and
Yes.
run their manifestos based
Yes.
on what they can do
Yes.
for those that are in labor.
And that begins from presenting alternatives to the present structure. Okay, the Labour Party they are doing so what they call constitutional amendment now. One of the major issues there is what they call local government autonomy. Labour Party is the party that is championing support for that local government autonomy. What is local government autonomy? It says that they will remove local government finances and all that from the control of the state and vest it in the center so that they will have direct access. So Labour Party is supporting that. Why? Because they said the governors are doing this and that. They are sitting on local government, this and that. Okay, fine. But the question is, what is federalism?
Right.
Federalism is a relationship between a subnational entity and the national entity. It's only a two-tier system. There is never a third tier, which they now make local government autonomy want to become. That is number one. Number two, there's nowhere in the world where all the local governments in the country are named in the constitution. So that before you change anything, you have to amend the constitution to change it. And again, that's why I said that when Obasanjo, as a young man, as a youth, brought American constitution to Nigeria. All these things are, I mean, each state, they even determine their electoral maps in their states. Nobody will sit down in Washington, D.C. and say, okay, you this state, this is how much local governments you can have. No. So these are things. So if Labour Party is actually a party of workers and stuff, then they have to they have to be aligned with the not only the conditions, but even the existence of workers itself. How is the Nigerian economy beneficial to workers? Why should somebody in Lagos and someone in Sokoto be buying petrol for the same amount? So why should the economy of one state be used to subsidize the others? Why should VAT be equal all over the place, the value-added tax or whatever they call it? So these are fundamental questions a Labour Party ought to address. But like I said, a special purpose vehicle will not address those questions. They will just find some popular guy and push their thing, and then they start mouthing all kinds. So when they now contest the election now, the question is, are we going to end the subsidy or we are not going to end the subsidy? The usual question. But the fundamental economic question is, why should we be paying the same amount of money for petrol in Lagos and in Sokoto? And then you have what they call the equalization fund to bridge the transport and all that. Why? So if Sokoto is going to be 100, is it pounds or sterling or naira or whatever, and Lagos is 20, fine.
Right.
Or Lagos is 500 and Sokoto is 10. If they can afford it, fine. But so you have everything that is centralized in Nigeria, and the Labour Party is not even questioning it. Again, why is the Labour Party not questioning it? The main sponsor of the Labour Party is the Nigeria Labour Congress. Before the military, again, the Obasanjo as a youth military came in, we had different labor centers. That's why we had Michael Imodu, HB Adebola, Wahab Goodluck, and all the rest of them. Even right there in the Western region, they had different labor unions. Sometimes they fight each other, sometimes they collaborate, they do this, but they are different. And then the youthful Obasanjo military regime came in and then merged everything and created the Nigeria Labour Congress in 1978. And even went ahead to remove ASU, the Academic Staff Union at that time, which was providing the necessary intellectual backup. That was a youth. So it is that Labour Congress that is now sponsoring the Labour Party. So you will see that by definition, the Labour Party cannot even act the role of a normal Labour Party. Some of them were in the House of Representatives at one point. I think after 1999, some of them were elected to the House of, they made their noise and then they left. So that is the problem that is facing, what I would call, what the Nigerians will call the political class. We have a term for everything, political class. That what is the nature of a political party? How does that party approximate or aggregate the interests of its members or the constituency that it is representing?
Right.
But the moment you, of course, I'm not saying you can have a party and then not operate under the guidelines that they give you, but you can still have a party and not operate under those guidelines. You can, because one, that means you are not going to contest their election because
Mhm.
you won't meet the requirements. But you can mobilize your members in such a manner that, I mean, aside from other kinds of struggles, that any party that wants to be dominant in your neighborhood must reckon with. That is the difference between the what we call the regular politicians and those who are contesting for elections. They know what they are doing. They know this is what you do to get power, and they go for it. And then a supposedly different party wants to target them and hope to overcome them. It's not possible, and that is the danger. That is why Labour Party finds itself where it is today. And like I said, without Obi coming into the picture, the Labour Party will just have been one of those parties. It's as simple as that. It just be one of those
That is just sitting there.
also ran parties. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I
And
think
yeah, go ahead.
even the leadership like Party Tommy, it used to be in the was it the APC?
Who?
Party Tommy.
Yes, he was. He was. Before he left, or whether he left, and then he formed this consultative forum and what they call the third force. They were going
Yeah.
to form the they were going to form the third force. So a third force that is supposed to challenge APC and PDP. Then they have the big tent, and then they have all these kind of things. Immediately Obi came in, they forgot all about that. And then so they are all, it's just a question of a political party as a special purpose vehicle. It's as simple as that for electoral purposes. And after Obi's tenure now, I doubt if it will change because the man will just go and find another vehicle to use.
That is it, because that's the concern that have been raised
Yeah.
in some quarters, that what usually happen with Nigerian young parties
Mhm.
is that after the election, obviously, if they didn't win, they just disappear, and only to reappear back
Yeah, back
maybe in the 4 years
because
when we're leading up to another elections. And
they
I
have
think I've
no
taken up.
they have no agenda. They have no Yes, they have no agenda because if you have an agenda, you have a pathway towards achieving that agenda. So it is difficult if you don't have any agenda to sustain a party
The
or a
party.
movement. Number one, the victorious party naturally they want to draw everyone into their net. So those who want appointments or this and that and contracts, they will start milling around. So within the next 4 years, that's what they will be doing. When the next 4 years come now, they will say, "Yeah, we are running for this, we are running," and then they will start over again. Why? They don't have an agenda. Because if they have an agenda, they will be pursuing their agenda with or without electoral choices. So that by the time the agenda becomes fully manifest, it will be obvious to even the electoral forces on ground. That's their problem.
Okay. Thank you
And
very much.
sorry to add this, even all those groups that we call the social-cultural groups, like Afenifere or Northern Elders Forum or
Yes,
Hanizas, you can even see them that even after elections, regardless of the outcome of the elections, they still maintain
that is their
their
presence.
their presence by
Yeah,
saying this is what we want, this is what we want, this is what we want. So by the time the elections come, they can now go any direction they want to go, but they still maintain that presence. Unlike these political parties that should be doing that.
that was his own.
So that's just what I
Okay.
want to add.
Right. Bring it right down to Yoruba. Um, I mean, it was great that we've seen quite a good number of Yoruba voters out there
Yeah.
voting. And of course, some of the results that are coming in is showing clearly that people are engaging. Because the one of the concern that you raised in one of the programs on here was the possibility that if the Yoruba voters, a sizable number of Yoruba voters, because of the chant for no election or Yoruba nation now, if those people failed to register and they failed to vote, then it's other people within that boundary that would determine who their political leaders will be. But I think to a certain level, there's a bit of confidence that Yoruba voters are engaged, even if not as much as what
Just
they should have. And of course, we know that some of the agitation with this presidential election has actually come to a close, especially for those that are pushing for a different country. I mean, they could start it again, but with the indication that we have for now, although it's not official yet, but indication of the result we have now, the leading aspirant or the leading candidate is Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And there's a projection that most likely he will be one that will be declared as as the president. Now, with Bola Tinubu's presidency, we know that there are some agitations that will come to a halt. And you've mentioned about the Yoruba Referendum Committee that even with a Yoruba presidency, the work has just started. That the presidency of Ahmed Bola Tinubu is not an end on its own, but is a means to an end. Can you please just expatiate for the people that might be joining us for the first time?
yes, yes, it is a means. It's actually a means and also a catalyst. It's not an end. The reason why it's not an end is this: we know how the Nigerian system operates. Buhari has been there. We know what he did and everything and everything. So the best that Tinubu can do is also to repeat what Buhari did, bring everything to the West. But he's not going to bring everything that has been taken to the North back to the West. He has to create a new one for the West.
Right.
And it's not going to get us anywhere. So what we are saying is that because the West itself, right from day one, right from when the whole concept of independence, anti-colonialism and stuff has started. When they had the Nigerian youth movement at that time, and then the Nigerian youth movement talking about anti-colonialism, anti-British, this and that, and then the thing collapsed. So Awolowo went to London, and then he said he has to withdraw and study the situation and see what he comes up with. That's how he came up with the book, the problem in Nigeria, where he made that famous statement that Nigeria is a mere geographical expression. So he saw it and he knew it that the only way out for Nigeria is by a federal system. And that is what, in the beginning, when you welcome me, I said this is not just about Nigeria, it's also about Africa.
Yes.
And this is also applicable to other African countries. Why? Because all the African countries created by colonial powers were a combination of nations within those countries. To make it worse, most of the boundaries were artificial. They are still artificial. So you find the Yoruba in Benin, Togo, and all that. Because they have fall under different colonial forces, they became different citizens of different countries, not of their own making. Okay, so Yoruba land had been the bastion for the quest for federalism in Nigeria. And all elections, everything that we have been doing since 1951, the golden era, had followed that projection. And it has worked very well for us. The only exception was the Obasanjo period when he was both military head of state and civilian head of state. And why was it an exception? Because he turned his back against that federalist paradigm that was the backbone of Yoruba politics. So that's why he brought the American Constitution in 1978 or something like that to destroy the parliamentary demand and stuff. And of course, we know what he did in the in this 1999 and stuff like that.
Right.
So for Tinubu's presidency, the only way he can go that will be beneficial is to go the federalist route. Because, like I said earlier on, you can't separate yourself from your history. The moment you separate yourself
Definitely.
from your history, you become toast to others. So he cannot but drive that federalist approach. How he's going to drive it may be due to different circumstances. Alliances brought him to power, so he has to do this to one alliance or the other, to one partner. And, they know how they do their stuff. But because he is the president, it is now easier for Yoruba people themselves to drive the quest for federalism by themselves, because the kind of opposition that will come from the center will be reduced.
Right.
Not only because you have a Yoruba person there, but the Yoruba person you have there has also been involved in these struggles under the military regime. And even when he was governor of Lagos State, most of his problems with Obasanjo emanated from the question of federalism itself. So he's not a stranger to it. So his being the president becomes a catalyst for us to now say, okay, how do we advance this quest with a friendly federal government which we can deal with? Because if we don't do it that way, let's even assume he spends his 8 years and he will leave now, someone else will come. So what are we
Sure.
going to, unless he wants to turn himself into a permanent president, which I doubt.
Yeah.
But so there's a limitation to just saying, yeah, he's there, everything is always fine. His being the president just becomes a catalyst for. And why did you say that? This election has thrown up many issues about Nigeria itself. Let's even leave aside the national question, the monetization and stuff. The first question is this: with what has happened and the way everything has gone, why should the center control the political process in the federating unit? Why should any party that wants to contest an election be registered in Abuja, has offices in 774 local governments, has what do we call it, officers and all? Why? Are they saying that we as a people lack the capacity to develop and define ourselves? Because when you talk of self-determination, you talk of independence, you talk of
Hmm.
decolonization, what you are saying is that you have the capacity to govern yourself. So if as a Yoruba person, I have the capacity to govern myself, why should I seek permission from Abuja to govern myself?
Yeah. Mhm.
So the only permission I seek is the only permission I give out. That because I'm not the only one in this geopolitical space. So there are Igbo, there are Edo, there are Igala, there are Kinikom. So I voluntarily give some of these powers to regulate our relationship. But my basic function to govern myself remains with me. That is what self determination is all about, or independence, or decolonization. So it has thrown up all sorts of issues that must be addressed. That, and like I say, why should anybody be campaigning all over the place because we want to be
Mhm.
president of Nigeria? Why should my party be registered in Abuja? Why should INEC be conducting election in Ibadan? So, in terms of security and all these things are also connected with security and all that. Because let's say Ibadan, for example, in the Yoruba region, we have our own electoral place, and they start fighting in Ibadan, you know, candidates and all that. It will be contained within ourselves. They don't have to send anybody from Abuja or the Nigeria police force or whatever it is to come and start doing whatever they want to do. So all these things empower the people to take control of their environment and so these are issues that are bound to come up, and because we have someone who has gone through it over a period of time, it makes it easier for us to say, city boy, as they call him, city boy,
Yeah,
what's happening? You know, and it is easier to talk to. That is number one. Number two, like I said earlier, that the contest for the presidency was a last ditch effort to sustain what I would call Fulani hegemony in Nigeria. That's why the elements or the cabal or whatever wants to make sure that the APC loses the election and stuff like that. All
yes,
these things will have to be taken. If they can go this way, even when they are in power, imagine what they will do when they are not in power.
right.
In other words, yes, the power, when they are in power, they had an advantage because they are in power, but and they can count on that advantage, but for the internal resistance. But if they are not in power, then they can collude with foreign elements to do anything they want to do.
Definitely.
So all these things must be taken into consideration. That is number two. Number three, we keep saying, I don't know there are different variations in Yoruba. Kíní pẹbẹ, kíní pẹbẹ, ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kẹta la jẹ tán. Some will
Yes,
say kíní Ìjẹ̀ṣu or Ìjẹ̀ṣu or something. There are different variants, but they say first time, and even fictionally, I remember one of the first fiction books I read about 007, James Bond, 007 at that time, and Fleming on the KGB. He said, first time is happenstance, second time is coincidence, third time is enemy action, which
yeah,
sums up this whole thing. Okay, so again, where history comes in, Awolowo first time, we know what happened. MKO second time, we know what happened. We are now at the third phase, and we don't want Ijenjeton to happen. So
definitely.
while we recognize his duties as the president of Nigeria and all that, we also recognize our responsibility as defenders of federalism, historically, defenders of federalism, to allow that history to drive whatever it is that we are going to be doing, so that by the time of the next election, it will be under a different category, principally on the election of the president. We should, all this running all over the place should be, I mean, you should be out of it. You want to campaign in your region and let your region elect you or select you or buy them. whichever way that suits their sensibility. Do anything, or if they like, they say they don't want to send anybody. But that is the way to project our humanity as, and that's why I said in Congo Republic they said Congo Democratic, because it said Democratic Republic of the Congo. The war they are fighting there, some will say is the longest war in history that has been forgotten. Why?
Yeah.
It's on the same national question, right from the time of independence in 1960. Obasanjo was there now as a commander or something like that. Since 1960, look at Rwanda, the genocide and stuff. Why? The Tutsis
Yes.
and the Tutsis. Look at all the even Ethiopia as we are speaking. Look at all the crisis points in Africa. You will find that national question as the cause. So if we know that this is the problem, it is not about competence or development or anything that they are talking about. Like I said, there is no community that lacks competent people among themselves to rule them. So don't let anybody come and start talking about competence or no competence or and all that and all that. The first thing is to recognize you as a federating unit by which your own competent people will drive your society. And if we now want a competent Nigerian, it will be easier to provide that competent
Right.
Nigerian. Yeah, it's as simple as that. So all those three conditions, I will
Yes.
just tell our Yoruba people, okay, this is our moment of history. It is not just Tinubu alone that is that has the moment of history before him. It is also the Yoruba moment of history, because if we don't grab it at this point, like I said, and all evidence bear it out, the struggle for Nigeria is actually the struggle for controlling Yoruba land. Mm,
Right.
yeah, by and large. So if we don't want ourselves to be controlled, then we need to That's why the Awolowo people spent all their energies and efforts to make sure that other nationalities in Nigeria are well represented. And that was the core principle that has held the Yoruba up till now. So his presidency is welcome. We should organize a presidential ball when the official results are announced, and drink clink glasses and say, yeah, now let's start the business.
That is, yeah. Let's start work.
Let's start work. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Hopefully, there are some reports coming in that INEC is currently on recess. There's other unconfirmed report that the coalition will continue tomorrow, but that has not been confirmed yet. But so far, with what has been released, again, Ahmed Bola Tinubu is still on the lead.
Yeah,
Of
like
course,
I
we're
said,
waiting.
the thing is, the only thing that is left for them, that is the cabal, the elements. I think Rufai call them the elements. Some people call them the cabal, and whatever name they call themselves. The only thing for them is either to come up with an inconclusive result, which will mandate a runoff. That's the only way left for them. They can't cancel anything anymore. They can't form an interim government anymore. And if the results are, if they declare it inconclusive and make a rerun possible, a winner must emerge from the rerun.
Much.
Whoever emerges from the rerun we still have to come and face the problem, because there is no way the national question is going to run away from that election. Whether the rerun is between Tinubu and Obi, or between Tinubu and Abubakar, or between Atiku and Obi, or Tinubu, Abubakar and Tinubu, it doesn't matter. that it will just simply aggravate the whole
Okay.
situation. Yes. And
Okay.
what I would call the northern progressive governors don't want is to upset the apple cart. That's why
Well,
they rallied around behind their candidate to make sure that he wins in their localities. So like Tinubu will say, "Ẹ jẹ́ ká fọkàn balẹ̀." I'm not campaigning for him, but
I mean, yeah, campaigning now is even over. They're counting the results.
ẹ
It
fọkàn
says
balẹ̀.
Samadipo, Ademawale.
Adẹ̀má wọlé, ẹ fọkàn balẹ̀. I mean, so
Okay, thank you so much, Alagba Femi Odedeyi. We are gradually coming to the end of the program. There's one important question, and I want to put this right among Yoruba leaders. We've seen that in the lead up to this election, we have Yoruba, I think probably will not say leaders, but we'll say elders, because then that's because really we can't really actually point to anybody apart from the political leaders that these are Yoruba leaders that were elected or selected by the people, other
yeah.
than the political representatives. So when we refer to Yoruba elders, then we can be talking about people leading groups, socio-political groups, or other agitators. Now, with a Tinubu's presidency, do you see the Yoruba elders across all these groups coming together to not joining their groups together, but do you see a sort of an alliance among these Yoruba groups to pursue something that is common for the Yoruba nation? Not Yoruba nation out of Nigeria, I'm talking about now, but Yoruba as a nation. Do you see
Yeah.
the possibility of that alliance among these many and several groups?
Yes, I see the possibility. Actually, it should be a welcome possibility. If they're not thinking about it now, they should be thinking about it. They should start thinking about it. The reason is this: it will provide the much needed home support
Hmm.
for the president. It will also provide a platform for interaction between the president and the Yoruba people. So these are people that can engage the president and say, look, oh, this is what we want, and blah, blah, and they will do what they need to do. So those are the major reasons why it will be necessary. At the same time, uh, the definition of the elders or the groups should be strictly controlled. Why did I say that? It is not just because you are a Yoruba group or you are a Yoruba elder, therefore you qualify to be part of. No, because you have seen how some elders have behaved and some use so, but let's limit it to elders now. We have seen how some elders have behaved in the run up to this election. Some have even threatened to go to war against Yoruba people because that is where the war will come if their candidate doesn't win. I mean, so all those people should simply be weeded out from that because at this point the quality I won't say the quality of eldership because there's actually no qualification except probably age or other. But the quality of representation of Yoruba people should be well defined so that uh, in the coming days and coming years, we don't have people who will just be running all over the place. So It is welcome and it is necessary. And if it is not yet on the table, they should start putting it on the table now. More importantly, it's not just a question of, again, I represent the Yoruba referendum committee, so I should be able to talk about it. Abi, okay.
Yes.
Uh, such a platform, a body, should also be able to chart the way. It's not just a question of advising the president on what to do, or having a home base for the president as a form of defense, but also charting the way forward for a truly federal Nigerian state. So such a body will now become the alternative. We now know where they call themselves South Middle Belt Forum or something like that, where they have not Lule. So what Lule. So
Mm.
the that such a body will now be the springboard to
Right.
reach out to other nationalities. Now, the Yoruba situation is different from, let's say, the Ijaw situation because the political dominance, the political structures are different for whatever reason, historical reasons and stuff like that. So we can't say they must come under our own. No, we recognize the political nuances. We recognize why certain choices were made in certain areas. No problem with that because you will deal with your own reality. You don't abandon or ignore your reality and then embrace another reality for yourself. So we recognize that. But what we are simply saying is that within our own reality, we must draw the line among ourselves. Àwọn tó ti lulẹ̀, those who have lulẹ̀, they have lulẹ̀ and they should just remain there.
Mm.
Meanwhile, those of us who are rising up should just rise up and then proceed. So beyond the question of beyond the question of being a bridge, because the administration will have its own ways of doing things, which may or may not be at variance with what the Yoruba wants. Mm. So, but we have a bridge. We have a bridge, and when we have that bridge, we also establish a pathway that we can engage the central government and other nationalities with. So such a body is welcome and is preferable. And
Yeah.
we can see the rudiments of it, even from the run up to. We have the Yoruba leaders of thought, we have the Yoruba Council of Elders, we have the Yoruba. I think those are the major ones. All the other ones, either Yoruba Nation or sorry to use the expression, and stuff like that. So, but I think it will be a welcome development, and we should all embrace it when it happens.
All right. And I mean, that will be moving on to the last question. And I know that we probably could say, okay, this is the way we'll go. But just to hear it from you, in case of declaration of the president, uh, are we expecting the sort of what we had during the 2015 presidential election when Goodluck Jonathan, that's the ex-president then, called to congratulate uh, Major Muhammadu Buhari. I mean, there have been reports that PDP said they will take whatever result comes in good faith. But are you expecting a sort of what we had then, like the other candidates congratulating the winner once it's declared, or we are looking at a sort of a legal contest after the declaration of the presidency?
Well, ordinarily, Ordinarily, there should be just, they should just take it in good faith that, okay, we have run the race, we have done this, congratulations, but we are going to put fire under your feet, so that we run the country. All that kind of, that ordinarily that should be the case. But from historical records, they will go to court, they will challenge results, even if they have no case. They will go and start all kinds of stuff like that. So hopefully they do everything before and then just hand over on May 29 and go. And then as Jonathan congratulated Buhari in 2015, Buhari will now congratulate Tinubu, saying thank you for a fight. I mean, they are in the same party, he's handing over to him, but they can do the drama.
Right.
Because sometimes the drama also enlivens the electoral contest, something like that. But I expect if they are, well, don't let me use the word that comes to my mind, but I expect them to simply, take it in faith. Thank you for contesting. If I offend you, I'm sorry. If I don't offend you, stuff like that. Let's work together. We'll make sure that you rule well. If you veer away from whatever, we will challenge you. And yeah, that those things are normal. That is what should happen, but it may not happen that way. And some of them are actually still smarting from the fact that they didn't install an interim government, and
Right.
they will be all out seeking for blood. I even read somewhere, I don't know whether it's correct or not. Before the final declaration of the election, the Labour Party is already saying they are going to challenge the election in court.
Yes, I think we got a signal of that as well, but
Uh,
it's not
so,
being independently
so
confirmed.
maybe not. So these are where the Nigerian election is unlike the 2020 election in America. Is it 2020
Right.
or 20, which was being denied and everybody running skelter skelter and all that. So again, that's why, sorry to bring this back in, when I was talking about monetization of elect, when Obasanjo as a youth brought the American Constitution to Nigeria, how are American presidents elected? They
That's
conduct general election, popular votes, but each state as a federating unit determines who becomes the president.
the
They
president.
have what they call electors. That is, in your state, maybe you have 10 electors. They are not elected as such, but they call them electors. It is those 10 people based on your performance at the election. Let's say if the state says winner takes all, and you have 10 people contesting the election, and one person won, then all the 10 electors will line up behind that person. If they make it proportional representation, that if you win 30%, you will get one. If you win 50%, you will get two. They will divide it accordingly. So it is those state electors that will now meet. That is the importance of January 6, 2021, when they stormed the US Congress. They will now, all the electors from the 50 states will now meet in Congress, and each one will present whoever is from their state. That is when the president is officially declared. Even if the president won the popular vote, like I think Hillary Clinton did in 2016, won the popular vote, but lost the electoral college. Those electors, that's what they call the electoral college. So by and large, and that was what Trump wanted to prevent. He wanted to prevent the electoral college from meeting to certify the president. Because if they don't meet, then there's no president, even though we know the results in the general election. So the same thing we are saying, when this youthful Obasanjo brought that constitution, he omitted that one, no, and he was a youth at that time, and then brought the confusion that is reigning now. That was why the first election they had in 1979, they couldn't conclude it. Then they had to form alliances, and then they started defining what is 212, 2 of 19, and all kinds of stuff like that. So they, as a youth, he brought confusion to the country. He's now appealing to youth to come and take over the same confusion. So what we are saying is that is a no. If each region determines who they want to send to the, there's no need to. So I just said let me put that in the issue at hand that we are talking about. That they are going to court and I mean, I don't see any reason why they should, but if they want to, I mean, they know how they play their game. They will do whatever, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary, especially with the tension and the crisis that was deliberately introduced during the election period, where people were, I mean, life was just brutish and nasty for a lot of people. So why prolong those nastiness? Everybody, you have campaigned, you have done what you have going to do, and you have abused each other, you have embraced each other. So let it go. I hope that is what will happen. Of course, they might say, because Tinubu, fine, yes, he won. Yeah, if he doesn't win, I will say the same thing. And we have been saying the same thing, that even what we stand for is not
Yeah,
dependent on a Yoruba presidency.
president.
It will aid what we are saying, it will aid what we are doing, but it will not determine its projection. So even if it is not Tinubu, it doesn't stop what we are doing. If it
Yeah.
is, it helps it. If it's not, it doesn't stop it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alagba Femi Odedeyi. For those that are listening to us or watching us, Alagba Femi Odedeyi is from the Yoruba Referendum Committee. Is the committee that has submitted a bill for a Yoruba referendum to the six Southwest state houses of assembly for them to pass the bill to law. We've attached the link to the petition right on the comments box here. If you click it, it will take you to the petition. You just need to put in your email and sign that petition. The group has always maintained that whoever becomes the president is just starting the work that is not dependent on the presidency, because this is at the state level and it's Yoruba, which is one of the major ethnic groups in Nigeria. The group has also met with other socio-political, if we can call them that, socio-political groups and some other organizations across the country to ask them to see the possibility of using the same template for their houses of assembly. What is being pushed forward is that Nigeria's identity is a multi-ethnic nationalities nation or country. And from what we can see all over the world, there's what we call self-determination and self-government by those ethnic nationalities, why they are still within that country. That's what we have in places like Switzerland, we have in United Kingdom, and of course, even in Canada, where we have some regions that have different languages. Those are being planned and they've been pushed forward in the past. We continue to maintain that the unitary government, the sort of government that we're running now, will not do Nigeria any good, because we are actually working against our identity as a nation. Uh, the time and the only time that we can refer to, or that is usually referred to as the golden era, is in the 60s when we ran a regional style government. Bearing in mind that Nigeria is geographically divided by boundaries around ethnic nationalities. And that should be what the government should be, where each region is dealing with their own governance in their own way, and of course sending representatives to the center. That will take out some of the experiences that we continue to have every 4 years when election is conducted in Nigeria. And overall, when we have a central government uh, trying to both contest and balance power between not the ethnic nationality, but the state flexing muscles and exercising power through the instrument of political parties, it will never bring uh, genuine progress to the country. And whether we agree with it or not, ethnic nationality identities will continue to rear its head in the discourse about politics in Nigeria. That is what we've seen before now during the 2015 presidential election. There was that issue of the North and the South. There was that issue about the Igbo, the Yoruba, and the Hausas and the Fulanis. The same thing is playing out right now, where we have individuals obviously coming forward based on their ethnic identity. And there's nothing wrong about it. It's just that we need to embrace that identities, and then we set up ourselves in a system of government that take cognizance of that, so that each of us can move at our own space without being pulled or dragged. Once again, Alagba Femi Odedeyi, thank you very much for coming up on the program. And we're hoping things being what it is, by tomorrow latest, we should have the final result and the declaration of the president for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Although that Federal Republic is just in a name, not at the moment in the context of the system of government. Thank you so much. And we hope to get you back in as soon as it's practicable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. For our listeners, we want to thank you once again for staying on with us. We will be right back here. We'll keep you updated with the election results. Please keep on the tab with us, both on Facebook and on YouTube. On Facebook, you have OY Media Scotland, and on the same, when you go to YouTube, is OY Media Scotland. And until I see you next week, my whole name remains Samuel Oludare Jirokun. And do stay safe, and we hope to celebrate whoever becomes the president of Nigeria in less than 24 hours. Thank you, and goodbye for now.